Hello everyone, welcome back to TNN Cafe. This is Anahita Anand for the news now, and I am here to talk to you all about episode number 2. So, I did mention in my last video that I want to do something really creative, something really unconventional, something not a lot of people have done before. But one thing that I did not mention there is that I'm not too much of a study baby. I don't like studying, I don't like jumping deep into my books and reading the same thing over and over again to score well in my exams. Like, that is something I am really against. Now, I don't want this to be a video where my school children, my juniors, my seniors, and my teachers sit and judge me saying, what kind of a student is she? I really appreciate all of y'all for whoever loves studying. I really appreciate teachers for teaching us because that's the part I love. I love sitting in classrooms wherein teachers explain new concepts to us, wherein my knowledge increases, wherein I learn new things. But the part where I have to sit right here in the study room, read the same thing over and over again 5 to 6 times in order to do well in a paper is the only part I'm against. Now, all of us would be reading books, fiction, non fiction, whatever y'all like. But we don't read the book 5 times over in order to learn from it, right? We read it once and we've gained enough. Like, we're literate. Like, if someone has a library, even if they have 100 books, they've just read those 100 books once and they're still considered very learned. You don't need to read something 5 times over in order to be learned. Now, coming to the point, I'm a class 12 student and I have to give my boards next year in March. And I am damn sure someone who gets a 98% would be way more appreciated than someone who gets a 92%. Now, I feel that is not enough of a criterion to judge a person. You know, the education system is such these days that someone with a 98% is looked upon as the gift of God. Like, really good for them. Getting a 98% is something really difficult. But for someone who's got a 92% should not be looked down upon. Maybe that person is better at other things. Maybe that person did not want to cram the books in order to score well in the paper. But you cannot judge the amount of knowledge a person has on the basis of their percentage, or you cannot judge how successful a person can be based on their percentage. Now, this is exactly what I've spoken about to Miss Gitika Kohli Amla, who surprisingly I related to on a spiritual level, guys. She is someone who appreciates creativity so much that I felt so comforted while talking to her. I'm not gonna give you all too many spoilers, but for people who feel like this about the education system, for people who think it's too academically burdening and things, creativity is not as appreciated as much as your academic result is, you all really need to view this video. I hope you all like it. Hi everyone, this is Anahita Anand for the news now, and welcome to episode 2 of the TNN Cafe. Today we're in conversation with an absolute multitasker. We're in conversation with Ms. Gitika Kohli, who is an author, an activist, and a skill developer from Jammu. So, ma'am, from what we've heard about you, you write books, you're into content creation, you're into skill development, you're a lot into peace building, and all of this already sounds like a lot to fill your plate. But because I always say I'm not exactly here as a journalist, I'm here as an average 17-year-old who has a lot of questions filled in my head. So I would like to pick the aspect of skill development from what you do. What we've heard about you is that you take workshops for children our age, which are more for spoken English, holistic development, as I would like to term it, because that's what I figured from your curriculum. So, could you tell us a bit about those workshops and what you do and what your curriculum is all about?
At the onset, I would like to thank you for the very nice introduction. So you're doing a great job. I watched your other interview as well, and it's really professional, and I really wish you the best. Okay, now coming to what I do. So basically, Anahita, there are several ways in which we take these trainings. Primarily, I run a company called ThinkStar. So this company is into the business of training. So we take trainings at our center, which is in Jammu, and we also do some field trainings wherein we go to colleges and corporate houses and other such institutions, and we take trainings over there. And you very rightly pointed out that primarily we are into soft skills training. Apart from that, I individually also take up trainings, and this is like more of a, what do you say, like social work also. And what we do is we engage with colleges and rural institutions wherein I personally go, and we have some other people as well. So we go and we take up again soft skills trainings primarily, and there are some other things also we do. Like there are certain gender sensitization programs that we take up. Then I'm very passionate about the cause of entrepreneurship. So and women entrepreneurship at that. So we go to women's colleges and again in rural areas and sometimes at schools also, and we talk about this thing and take up some activities through which we can teach them the basic skills that are required to be an entrepreneur. So several other things are there. Yeah.
That's amazing to hear. So, from what we spoke about right now, I collected what you do for almost everyone, whether we talk about kids, whether we talk about grown-ups, whether we talk to people in villages, whether we talk to people in towns. Um, Coming to what I would want to know more about, what are your workshops like for children like me? Like, is it just spoken English, or do you focus on other things like personality development, or when it comes to things like that?
Yeah. So for the sake of convenience, we advertise it as a spoken English program, but it has everything else in it. I think you would also understand that for you to be able to speak English, you need to read first and you need to, listen to a lot of stuff. Then only can you write and speak better. So this is a very holistic course in which we cover all of these aspects, whether it is reading, writing, listening, or speaking. But it's not only to do with your technical communication or professional communication. As I'm a writer, I take up these workshops wherein people learn creative writing and poetry writing and storytelling and so many other things. And this is something that I do ardently. And we have small children doing this. We have adolescents doing this, people your age, and then even older people doing this. In fact, we have some people say who write for newspapers or are like quite older and already professional. So they also take up these workshops. And again, this is something that happens at the center, online, and on the field as well.
That's amazing. So, I am a student. I study in Jammu, and I study in a CBSE school. And now, like all of us may have been noticing, over the years, when we talk about the education system, it's got more burdening when it comes to academics, and not too much of co-curriculars are what is focused on, because in order to get into a good college, you need good marks, and if you don't score well, you're not looked at upon as the best student. Do you think our education system lacks creative development or co-curricular activities? Do you think this is something that is lacking and is not allowing children like us to grow as much as we should be growing at this age?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'll just relate a little anecdote from my own student years, school years. So I was a maverick. I was into poetry, painting, and I was that student who was very creative. But what would happen is that we would be burdened with homework, and of course, there was that rat race that we used to score good marks and all of that. And at my time, it was lesser compared to what you're going through right now. So at that juncture, I still remember that I would be like, my mind would be buzzing with ideas. I would want to paint something, or I would be like in that creative bout of inspiration and wanting to write down a poem or a story. And then I would come back home, and my mom would be like, "Okay, so show me your school diary. Let us see what homework you've got." And it would be a long snake like list of activities that I would be. So I would tell my mother, no, I really need to get this poem on paper, or really need to make this poster. Then only will I study. And I remember bargaining with her every single day, and it was very. Sometimes I would feel that how am I going to? And I would be very stressed thinking about how am I going to cope up with this. So I will relate another incident with you wherein we had this art class that I was very interested in, and once our teacher took up flower drawing with us, and she made a flower on the board wherein, she asked us to copy. So it was a straight flower which was projected at us, and we had to imitate what she had done. But I was a little, feeling very creative that day. So what I did was I took it from another perspective. I drew it from the bottom, and my teacher was really, irked by that, and she said that you did not get it right, and she chided me for not copying it the right way. I went back home and had a conversation with my father. I was very stressed. And I remember I told him that, how, they cannot just tell us what to draw, or they cannot just tell us what to think. So, I remember that my father and we discussed in detail about how much pressure I had. And I told him that, I have no time to explore other, aspects of my personality. I'm just always doing homework. And I even remember that at one point, I also said that, can I not be homeschooled? So it was something like that. And I get good grades, but then I was always under tremendous stress. I was not very happy with the way things were getting conducted. Yes, at times you would get an opportunity to be on the stage and read poems, and those extracurricular activities would be there, but I think that they are central to, the shaping of your personality. They are not something extra. They are very, very central to the opening of your mind, and for your critical thinking to really happen. I think this is something that you have to do first. And all of that cramming about facts, I really don't understand why that is. I can also give you one more example, uh, the learning of history. So I think the majority would agree with me that history happens to be a very boring subject. Nobody wants to study that. It's very insipid, right? Even when children your age, they are at that threshold when they need to decide their subject. So people are like, yeah, right, you need to take up arts, but what will you do about history? How are you going to take that up, right? It just is so boring, and it's just so difficult to do that because you have to cram facts. And you also know that this is something that is going to just last for the short run only. After the
Yeah.
exam is over, you're never going to remember the exact dates, right? But let me tell you something, if this is done in an interesting manner, right? Like you said, that we have to creatively develop an individual. So if this talk is, say that there is an interdisciplinary approach where, say that we are talking about history, but we are also reading a story, but we are also getting math into it and science into it, and your botany and geography, everything is put in together, and it's more, more like a story that is being told or enacted by the students. I think, done in a very artistic way, I think then people are going to remember. So I am somebody who people say that, hey, how do you know so much about history? You're not a history student. Oh, do you really read those thick books and mug up those facts? I say no. I just happen to read a lot of literature and I just enjoy myself. I just am with my cup of coffee. I enjoy these lovely stories. And since I'm doing it in a very enjoyable manner, I'm able to remember everything. And there's no pressure on me to remember them. There's nobody who's going to test me. Plus, exams are only about testing your short-term memory, I feel, and
Yeah.
that's not an asset, I would say. So it's very silly. Even if my advice would be, even if the system is such wherein your scores are important, I think having gone through that system, I can very comfortably tell you that marks are not everything. Obviously, you need to have a little score up there because it matters somewhere. But it's not about like you score 98.9 and somebody scored 97.6. So it's not a big difference in the long run. If you're somebody who's learned very properly or who has an in-depth understanding of things and not just your subjects at college, but you are somebody who has invested in his or her personality, and you know about what is happening on the world front and so many other things, then you're going to have better prospects than a student who scores 99%.
You know, this was just like music to my ears because I happen to be a humanities student. So, yes, I do study history. And I am so thankful to God that I have a teacher just like you explained. So, he explains history as a story, and that's how I find it as interesting as I do. Otherwise, when I'm told to read my books and just cram, like you spoke, it just tests your short term memory. Studying history in a classroom and hearing it as a story is the interesting bit of it, but cramming it up for my exams for wherein I have to remember each year what happened, when happened, and how it happened, that's the disastrous bit, and that's what I'm most afraid about. So I completely relate with you, and with the way you spoke of yourself as a student, I think I relate with that on a spiritual level because I am just like you. And I am someone who's more of a rebel because even if I have to do well academically, I try and push my way into co-curricular so that I try and balance the two. Like even if I have to give up a little time on my academics, I would not want to give up on my co-curriculars because that is what makes me happy. It's more of a happy place. Like taking your interview right now is more of a happy place for me. So you would have dealt with a lot more students than I would have dealt with. I can just talk on what I feel on a personal basis or maybe what I would have heard from my friends. But do you think this continuous academic pressure on a student kinds of dims the light within or affects their mental health? Like you said, you used to go through a lot of stress because you were losing your creative side because you were in the run for doing well academically, and that's how your teachers would pressurize you because that's how the system is. Do you think the system, the so-called system is we talk about, is like a bad effect on children mentally?
Yeah, I think it has mental health consequences, definitely. Like you said, I engage with a lot of children, small ones, older ones. With each passing year, the child is loaded, like, beyond what they can really carry. And somewhere, I think, a child just gauges that through the reactions of their teachers or through the pressing by their parents or the society in general, that ultimately it is my report card that is going to be my core identity for a certain number of years. So that's not right. I think why not give our students those avenues where they can creatively express themselves? So now I'll tell you, like with me, I used to write these poems, but there was poetry was not inbuilt into our curriculum, and it's very strange. Like now I discuss with my students. In my program, we always do poetry, not because I want to turn everybody into a poet, but because I understand that it's very significant because a
Yeah.
child just they can release their emotions, and it's something that can actually bolster their mental health. So this was not something that was part of our curricula back then. And if something saved me, it was the arts only. I think if I was not an artist, which was not, by the way, promoted by anyone, I think my family members were still like very happy with me writing, and even at school I would get a chance to speak and this and that. But overall, I don't think that this was something that was advertised on a large scale, and children were really invited to come and participate and be painters or be speakers or dancers. I don't think so. That was somewhere, yes, it was sometimes considered even frivolous to write or to read or to dance during exams. So I think what really helped me go through that tough time was arts. So I feel that there is a lot of pressure on kids, which really they should not succumb to. I don't think cramming facts is something that can ensure your success. I think when you're mentally at peace, when you look beyond what is there in your textbook, because the textbook is, again, it is also something which is streaming from somebody's mind. It is just very limited. I don't think that a textbook is like the sky in any way. I think it's very limited. It is, and with changing governments, the textbooks also change, right? So I think textbooks or learning by rote or marks, I don't think these are things that are going to empower you in the long run. What will empower you is whether you can look beyond these books and whether you can connect things, whether you can have an opinion of your own. Are you, IT literate? Are you social media literate? Are you understanding, what is really going on in the world? If you are able to link history to the present, if you are able to link what is happening in the IT world, say, or in the science world to ethics, so then I think that you have an open mind and you will be able to make some sort of change. But if you're just, somebody who's chasing scores, I think that is only going to, you're going to fail in the end because the pressure never ends. So I don't think that parents or teachers or the system as such should pressurize students into learning all the time. I think coronavirus also has taught us somewhere that this is not something which is central to our life, but
Yeah.
exploring ourselves spiritually is. So that is what I believe we should focus on.
Okay, so another question that just came to my mind is right now you spoke of parents pressurizing. So I have a single mom and she's always working. Like she doesn't have too much time to give to me. And from class three, I've been on my own, whether it comes to my co-curriculars, whether it comes to my academics. So we live in a small town, which is why parents over here still get to give their children a little time. But if I talk to friends in Delhi or Bombay, working hours are longer, 9 to 7, parents are out of the house. The only time they get to see their parents is maybe at night for dinner and then in the morning before they go for work. So when we talk of parenting and holistic development, um, do you believe in quantity parenting or quality parenting? Because parents also have a right to live their own life and do their own work because in order to earn the bread and butter, I think everyone is obliged to be able to do their own bit. So what would you believe? What would you preach? Quality parenting or quantity parenting?
Yeah, I think the times are such wherein people are forced to work beyond, their limits. And again, when we talk about the school system, they push us beyond our limits, and when we talk about our work, then also it is like this. But having said that, I also know that there are some people who are, whose identities are somewhere larger. You cannot just put them into boxes that, okay, my mom is a banker, so she's going to work from 9 to 5. So you can't say that because there's more to them than that job also. So it's not wrong for them to explore their identities fully. I feel that parents also, like you said, have a right to explore themselves, and it's not, that obviously if they are your parents, they are your guardians, they are going to look after you, and they are going to ensure that you get everything. But maybe they also want to work for a social cause, right? Maybe they are good at something and they want to. Maybe they are painters. They want to paint and they want the world to see their paintings and they want to effect a change using those paintings. So you can't stop them from doing that. I think you have answered it yourself, Pune. It's quality that matters. Like we see in certain foreign nations, like in Europe or in nations with a better quality of life, maybe Sweden or maybe Iceland or Denmark or such countries, you will see that they have one, they focus on a limited number of working hours, but then they have weekend concept and naturally people are working and they are not 24/7 with their children, but whatever time they have off, it is spent in a very qualitative manner. So I think that is the key to a happy life, that we grow individually, but we also get to share what we've learned and what we've experienced with our family and friends.
This is so good to hear. Okay, to end with, do you have a particular message you would want to give to our, like you have your students, our generation, whoever's viewing this video, whoever's dealing with academic pressure and maybe is not being able to explore themselves to the extent they want to, is succumbed under the notion of having an identity only if they score up above a certain limit. But would you have a message for our generation?
All right. I think keeping in line with what we are discussing, so I have this little message. My message would be that your identity, I think your identity is not something which is projected through your marks card or through the school that you are attending or your gender or anything else for that matter. I think we all are here to explore ourselves spiritually. That is the purpose of our life. Our purpose is not to impress somebody else, right? So sometimes I think what happens is people who are very close to us, they are battling their own demons, right? So they pass on those viruses to us also, and it is because they are under tremendous pressure. We catch that pressure, and we want to really, we think that we can resolve this problem by really turning into the person they want us to be. But it doesn't work like that. No matter how hard you try, you won't be able to please somebody else ever. It doesn't work like that. So I feel that it is the responsibility and it is the right of every kid out there to explore themselves fully the way they want to. And I think art is something that can actually offer you a lot of release, a lot of understanding, a lot of freedom. So make art central to your life. Don't succumb to any pressure. Don't try to be a person simply because that is the ideal person of your society projects to be. So just live your life according to what makes you happy. Be guided by your internal emotion, and you're going to be very, very successful. And your contribution is going to be very meaningful then.
Thank you so much, ma'am. These were really inspiring words, specifically for someone like me. It was wonderful talking to you. I'm so happy I got to interview you and actually get to hear this from someone like you, someone who I look up to and someone who I actually relate to, because the kind of student you seem to be is exactly how I am. So it was amazing talking to you and wishing you all the best for your future endeavors. Thank you so much for being on TNN. I hope you liked it, and I hope Gitika ma'am is able to comfort you and make you feel better about yourself just the way she made me feel better about myself. Do let us know your views in the comments below.